Hey, what's up? Now, if you remember last year, I talked about how much I don't like romance movies. And I mentioned this year, if I felt like it, if I was really still angry about it, I would talk about why I hate Valentine's Day. But here's the thing about me, is that if I'm going to really rage and talk crap about something, I want the anger to be real. I want my emotions to be real. I don't want to be like, your Bill O'Reillys or your Sean Hannitys. If you watch them, you'll notice it's completely fake. You can just tell. They're just saying whatever they're being told to say. They don't really care one way or the other. But I don't want to do that. I wanted my anger or my frustration to be real. So I'm not going to do that. Instead, I'm going to talk again about romance in movies. And last year I talked about why I hate them and why I hate in general romances in movies. But this year I wanted to talk about some examples. I want to give you 10 examples of what the worst types of romances I've seen. Now, I know you're probably thinking, wait a minute, you don't watch romance movies, so what can you tell us about terrible romances in movies? Well, the thing is that a lot of movies, they have romances just put in them. Sometimes they make a little bit of sense to have them in there. Sometimes they're just crowbarred in there. Sometimes I just say crowbar in my reviews because I don't want to talk about how the romance has been forced and crowbarred into the movie. So I want to talk about the top 10 worst movie romances I've seen. Now, bear in mind, I haven't seen certain movies, this top 10, I had to have actually seen the movie in order to put it on the list. So if you're waiting for me to tear apart Titanic, 50 Shades of Grey, or Twilight, you're out of luck because I never watched those movies. Thank you, Jesus! I've never seen those movies. But of the movies I have seen, here are the 10 worst romances I've seen. Now, they could be worse for the chemistry between the characters, the story itself, or the fact that it's forced, completely forced. So here we go. Number 10 is Forrest Gump. Now, some of you are already getting your pitchforks and torches ready, but hear me out why this one makes number 10. Honestly, I debated whether or not to put this one on the list or not, but in the end, I had to. You look at Jenny, first of all, was completely screwed because of all the crap her dad did to her. So there was no way she was going to ever be in a healthy relationship to begin with. Now, Forrest, he's an idiot, but he's not completely dumb. He does understand emotions. He cared about Jenny for years. She was his best friend. He gradually developed feelings for her over the years, and he was always the one that she could go back to, and he would always be there for her. But she kind of treated him like crap, because here he is always being there for her, but she only was there when she needed something from him. She was only back in his life when she needed something. And that kind of sucked. And especially towards the end, you find out, she gets pregnant from a one-night stand with Forrest Gump. Then she just leaves his ass for years and only comes back when she has AIDS. Yeah, she says, I'm sick, and this is the 80s, so the big thing in the 80s was the AIDS. Was AIDS, and so, there's no way that it was going to be anything else, especially when you see all the stuff that she did throughout her life. So yeah, I had to put this movie on the list. And then she comes back years later when she's dying, and now she tells her, oh, this is your son, not really knowing if it's his son or not. But he's still always accepting, always being there, and you just feel sorry for the guy. It's like, what the hell, man? Really? But in the end, I kind of had to. I felt a little bad for him. Like I said, it's the story itself. It's a good story, but when you really step back and think about it, that is a really bad romance. But not as bad as some of the other ones on my list, and that's why it was number 10 on the list. All right. Number 9 is Snow White. Oh, I can hear the anger. How dare you put Disney movies on this list? And some of the people are probably saying, of course you're going to put Disney movies on this list. Honestly, I probably could have filled half this list with Disney movies. but I decided not to. There are only 2 Disney movies on this list, and this is the first one, Snow White. Why is it so bad? Well, think about it. She didn't know this guy. This was just some prince that she saw in a well. Really, that's it? That's it? And she never really sees him until he saves her ass. So it's basically one of the first movies that showed, oh, if a guy saves your ass, girls, your ass belongs to him now. It's like, what a horrible message to teach girls. It's, when you really step back and look at it, first of all, Snow White's a freaking idiot. All right, she is a dumbass. For the apple, yeah, especially. But I went back and actually read the original Grimm's fairy tale story, and she's even dumber in that one. But let's just stick with the movie. She's an idiot for first of all, and then she only falls for this guy after he saves her life. Like what the hell? Yeah, really stupid. It deserves to be on this list, but don't worry, it's not the worst Disney romance. But we'll get to that later. Number 8 on my list is Overboard. Yes, an 80s movie is on this list. Kurt Russell and Goldie Hawn in this one. What makes this one so bad? Well, 2 words. Stockholm Syndrome. Yeah, a well-to-do woman screws over some carpenter after he does work for her. She falls off a boat, and then he finds her, and instead of calling the police or an ambulance or a hospital, somebody to help her, no, he kidnaps her, forces her to work for, basically be his slave, pretend that she's his wife, and then by the end of the movie, we're supposed to make believe that she's supposed to stay with him. We're supposed to cheer for him. It's like, what the? Are you kidding me? This is some BS right here. So, yeah, it's really stupid. And not to mention, we're supposed to be cheering a kidnapper. We're supposed to be cheering a kidnapper and somebody who's brainwashing a woman into believing that these 3 boys are her sons. When we don't even know where the real mother is. She might have left his ass because he's a bit of a bastard, to be honest. So yeah, it makes no sense for why this movie was popular back then. I guess, rape and kidnapping were the thing to do back in. If you're an adult in the 80s, I don't know. I was barely born. I was born in the 80s, but I don't know. It's weird. There are a lot of movies, if you look back on them, and you just know this is some weird crap right here. But anyways, back to the list. Number 7 on my list is the Spider-Man trilogy. Yeah, I don't like the Spider-Man trilogy as much as I like the Amazing Spider-Man movies. I think the Amazing Spider-Man movies are better, and here's another example of why. In Amazing Spider-Man, the two actors in that movie have really good chemistry together. They really play off of each other. But in the Spider-Man trilogy with Tobey Maguire and Kirsten Dunst, there's not really any romance, that chemistry. They're just supposed to be together. And even then, it's so wishy-washy throughout the entire trilogy. It's like, oh, he likes her, but then he tries to push her away, but she wants to be with him, and he finally admits that he likes her, but she's going to get married, and blah, 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 blah. Oh, God. This is one of the worst elements of this entire trilogy. I mean, throughout the first 2 movies, he never tells her that he's Spider-Man, and she really just goes back and forth with she wants to be with him, but then she doesn't. And then the whole scene in the 3rd movie, that 3rd movie, let's not talk about that one. So, yeah, it's really bad. Not to mention, Mary Jane in that movie is just a superhero girlfriend. That's all she is. She's not a character like Gwen Stacy was in the Amazing Spider-Man movies. She really wasn't. She never helped out Spider-Man throughout the entire trilogy. She was constantly being kidnapped. She was the damsel in distress that really could have just been played by anyone. There was no real reason for her other than to exist in those movies except as being the superhero girlfriend. I mean, you can go to this Nostalgia Critic had a great tirade on that. But I don't remember all that. I just know of the 2 sets of movies, if you were looking for a good romance and a good chemistry between the 2 main actors, I would choose Amazing Spider-Man over the Spider-Man trilogies. And those movies, ugh, that romance is just bad. Anyways, it's not as bad as, well, 6 other movies on this list actually. And I've talked a lot of crap about the Spider-Man trilogy. Well, here's another movie that I've talked crap about in another top 10. Number 6 on my list, Avatar. I've mentioned it's Dances with Wolves in Space. Here's another example of why. Dances with Wolves in Space, he meets this Na'vi and they match braids later on in the movie, but there was no real reason for them to hook up. She was teaching him, and she was being a better native than the natives. I hate that. But there's no real reason for them to hook up. It was just that they were spending time together. And, oh, she was with this one guy, but now because she's spending time with him, she automatically falls for him. I was like, oh, yeah, it's exactly like Dances with the Wolves, except it's in space. Yeah, terrible story, terrible romance. It was just god-awful. And, yeah, not as bad as my top 5. But I'll talk about that in my next video. Since I don't want to be completely negative in this video, the question I'm going to ask you is, what are some good movie romances? What are some good movie romances? And if you're wondering, well, you're doing a top 10 worst movie romances, are you going to do a top 10 best movie romances? No. Not this time. Maybe if I have a girlfriend, I'll do one. But other than that, it ain't going to happen, bro. Anyways, so this video will be part 1. Part 2 of my worst romance movies will come out this Thursday. So until then, later.